This one secret can triple your business in 2025. In this episode, I'm about to share with you what that secret is and how you can use it to massively grow your business. I use this same secret to go from making $10K a month to over $500K a year in my business in less than 2 years. So I know it works and it will work for you if you apply it. And make sure you stick around to the end where I'll share with you the one question you can ask yourself right now to put this secret into practice and massively increase your revenue as a result. So you might be wondering what this secret is, and I'm about to share it with you in just a minute here. But in order to introduce this secret, I want to talk about the farming industry. Now, I'm not a farmer and I've never farmed myself. Grew up in cities and went to the grocery store and got my food basically delivered for the most part. But if you look at the farming industry, this is a great way to kind of introduce this secret. When farming first started, it was, basically people were going out there, they were spending all day in the fields, planting seeds. And then at some point, some enterprising entrepreneurial farmer said, I could spend all my time out here planting seeds, 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours a day, or I could hire a team to do this planting for me. And I could accomplish what might have taken me weeks in a couple of days with a couple people on my team. And I just hang out inside or maybe work a couple hours a day out in the fields and accomplish the same thing. So what ended up, being something that originally took weeks and weeks and weeks to do, now with the leverage of a team, this person could do a lot faster. At some point, somebody came along and they said, we're doing all this work out in the field. What if we built a machine that could allow us to accomplish the same amount of work, but a lot more automatically? So rather than spending 8 hours out in the fields, we could spend a couple hours out in the fields and just run this tractor through the fields, and it basically could plant all the seeds automatically or water the plants automatically. And we could accomplish what was taking a couple of weeks in a couple of days or even a couple of hours. And so through the leverage of this machine, the entire farming industry was transformed. You look at the way that people used to farm compared to the way that people farm now, the amount of food that we produce today massively increased with the same or a lot less of the amount of work. Now, what made this possible? Well, leverage. And the most successful entrepreneurs out there, just like we look at farmers and how they've been able to grow and prosper by creating more leverage in the way that they do their work. The best entrepreneurs, the most successful entrepreneurs out there are the ones who are able to create more and more leverage so they can get more output out of the same input. They can still, put in the same amount of time or even less in many cases. And honestly, some of the most successful entrepreneurs I've ever met are not the ones that quote unquote work the hardest. Oftentimes they're, the quote unquote laziest. They're the people who are working less. But their secret to success is not about working harder. It's about creating more leverage so that every hour that they put into their business is generating 5 times or 10 times the amount of someone who isn't as intentional at creating leverage. And this is how you succeed. This is how you massively grow your business in 2025. This is how I was able to go from making 10K a month to 60, 70, 80, 100K a month in my business. It's not magic. It's just how do you create more leverage in your business? And that is what we're going to talk about today. So I want to share with you over the next few minutes some very practical suggestions as to how you might create more leverage, how I've been able to create more leverage in my business as I've scaled and grown. This, again, is not rocket science. It's just some really practical ways of approaching your business. And the key is really taking this leverage first approach in everything that you do, which is asking yourself on a daily basis, how can I create more leverage? How can I create systems and structures and team and show up differently in my business so that I can create more output with the same input or less? That is how you grow and scale a business. So I want to share with you a couple of areas, 3 specific areas in your business that you might think about creating more leverage, and some very specific examples as to how I've done this in my business as I've grown. So the first area I want to talk about today is marketing. We look at what actually moves the business forward, your business forward, and pretty much anyone's business forward. Probably one of the most important pieces of success is just having really good marketing and creating more lead flow. The more leads you can create with the same or less amount of your resources, the more you're able to scale and grow your business. And for most business owners, this is the biggest constraint. It's lead flow. So unlocking leverage in your marketing is the key to creating more leads with less of your time and resources. And that is one of the biggest keys to success when it comes to growing a business. So how do you actually do this? How do you create more leverage in your marketing? Well, the first thing is when I look at what I was doing when I first started my business, a lot of what I was doing was focused on one-to-one conversations. So my marketing strategy initially when I started as a business coach was I would add 50 coaches a day on Facebook and as friends, and about 25 of them on average would accept. And then I'd go reach out and I'd have one-to-one conversations with them in the DMs. And I'd reach out and I'd say, hey, I really appreciate your work and what you're up to. And we'd have back and forth. And eventually, if I thought I could help them, I might redirect them to one of my trainings, or I might hop on a call with them. And that got me to around 5 to 10K a month in my business. The challenge and the issue was it took a lot of my time because it really wasn't leveraged. And many people, when it comes to growing their business, at least to start, this is where their focus is. It's how do I essentially just have conversations with people? And this is a great way to grow. And I often recommend people have conversations and integrate this at every aspect of their business. The problem is this can very quickly become a bottleneck in your business. And so when it comes to creating more leverage, one of the biggest shifts that you'll want to make as you grow and scale your business is shifting from conversations to content. When you are having a conversation with someone, it's one-to-one. You can only talk to one person at once. And so there's an inherent limit to that, right? Because we all only have 24 hours in a day, and there's only so many conversations that you can have one-to-one if all you're doing is one-to-one conversations. So at a certain point, you just hit a bottleneck and you either kind of get capped at that certain level of revenue, or you just try to do more conversations and eventually you burn out. Versus if we look at content, the magic about content is I can record a video like this and I can talk to thousands of people at once. And I'm still putting in the same amount of time, right? It's still 30 minutes of my time or however long it takes to record this video, but I can talk to so many more people at once. And so when I look at what I did in my business, what really shifted for me as I scaled, one of the biggest changes I made was I shifted away from conversations. It wasn't like I still integrate conversations in my business. I do it differently, but I shifted away from conversations being like the core marketing tool and more content creation. And content was the thing that really drove more of the lead flow. So I could reach more people with the same or less amount of my time. One of the biggest keys to creating leverage in your marketing. So how can you shift your focus from conversations to content? That's going to be a big thing for a lot of online entrepreneurs. The other thing is for a lot of folks, the shift around leverage with marketing is from shifting to trading your time to trading your money. We only have 24 hours in a day, right? The most successful people have the same amount of time as the least successful people. But when we look at, okay, how do you actually get more leads into your business? You have your time, and that's where most people start because they don't have a lot of money generally. And it's like, okay, well, I can spend all my time creating content. And that is still a good thing to do. But at a certain point, we only have a limited amount of time. And if you want more attention and more visibility in your marketing, which again is the way to scale and grow, you start shifting your focus from how do I trade my time to how do I trade my money? Because theoretically, there's an infinite amount of money you can actually trade for attention. Now, you might be saying, well, I don't have an infinite amount of money right now, Jason. I understand that. But the truth is, you can theoretically create an infinite amount of money in your life, whereas we only have 24 hours in our day, right? You can't create more time. There's no way to do that. But you can find a way to create more money and trade that money for more attention that you can convert into more money. And so this is the game that many entrepreneurs will play as you grow and scale. Like for me, one of the biggest shifts that I made in my business was when I was at like 5 to 10K a month, I was doing all organic. And then I started leveraging paid traffic. And this is a big part of what I teach people and help people with today as they grow and scale their businesses, because this strategy, integrating this and shifting from trading my time for money to trading my trading my time for attention to trading my money for attention allowed me to go from making 5 to 10K a month to 60K a month on average. And the biggest shift was I was just investing into paid traffic every month. So I was trading my money for more leads that I can convert into more money later on. And this became this kind of virtuous flywheel that I could continue to use to grow and scale my business. But it didn't involve me spending more time. As a matter of fact, I ended up spending less time in my business as I scaled because I was in a place where I didn't have to spend hours a day in the DMs having conversations with people because my marketing and my content and my paid traffic was doing more of the heavy lifting for me. So I had created more leverage in my business, essentially allowing me to get more output with less of my time. So trading time to trading money is really like, that's the pivot that a lot of folks, when it comes to scaling and growing their business, will need to make. The other thing that I think is great when it comes to creating more leverage in your marketing is repurposing. So if I create one piece of content in my business, how can I get more mileage and value out of that piece of content? So for example, with this podcast that I'm recording it as video and as audio. So I can take that one piece of content and now I can post it to 2 different places. We have our podcast as well as the YouTube channel. And I can also take that and I can run it through a tool like Opus, which we use right now to automatically create reels out of my podcast and out of my video. So now I have stuff that I can post on Instagram as reels. So now out of one piece of content, I've created multiple pieces of content. And I can also use this I could maybe pull the transcript and create multiple pieces of text-based content. Maybe I could post it on a blog or as social media content. So the best entrepreneurs, the ones that are most committed to creating leverage in their marketing, are looking at how can I get more mileage out of every single piece of content that I create? Because if you can get 2 times the output in terms of value, in terms of attention out of the same piece of content, you've effectively doubled the leverage. You create a lot more output, but you don't have to create more content, right? Whether this is just as simple as, chopping things up or just reposting stuff. A lot of people don't realize is like, man, if I post a piece of content once, I can post it again 3 months later. It's like brand new to people. So these are some ways that you might create more leverage in your marketing. And asking yourself, when it comes to your marketing, are there any opportunities that I see right now in that area of my business that I might be able to create more leverage, that I might be able to create more output with less of my time? Hey friend, hope you're enjoying this episode of the podcast. And before we get back to it, if you're an established online business owner who's serious about unlocking your next level of income and impact and growth in your business, I want you to watch my free $1 Million online business training, where I walk through a 4-step roadmap I've personally used to sell well over $1 million of coaching, consulting, and courses online. It's going to make the journey of growing your business so much easier. I want to give this to you for free. All you got to do to access it is go to jasonmoss.com/growth. That's jasonmoss.com/GROWTH to get free access to this training right now. Now back to the episode. This brings us to the second area I want to talk about when it comes to creating more leverage in your business. And we're going to talk about one more after this too that I think is really important. So make sure you stick around for that, as well as that question at the end of this video and episode, which I think is incredibly important to actually put this into practice. But before we get there, I want to talk about leverage sales. Leverage sales, super, super important. Marketing and sales really are like the 2 engines or the 2 wings of your growth engine in your business. And so marketing, super important. How do we get more leads through leverage? Sales, how do we convert more of those leads with more leverage? Because honestly, when I look at the thing that holds a lot of folks back in their business at a certain point, it's the sales process. I'm spending way too much time having conversations with people. And all of that time that you're spending selling in your business is taking you away from things that you can do that are more leveraged. Like if I have a choice in my business between having a one-to-one conversation with someone versus investing that same hour that I might spend on a sales call into creating a piece of content over the long term in my business, creating a piece of content is way more valuable for me as a business owner because I can speak to thousands of people through that piece of content. But when I'm on a sales call, I can only talk to one person. So what often happens, and what happened for me in my business, was I was spending so much time selling that all of that time was redirected away from things that I could be doing that were way more leveraged in my business. And that becomes a bottleneck for many entrepreneurs as they grow and scale. So when we look at creating more leverage around sales, one of the first things we do is we shift the focus from conversations to content. Again, you might notice a theme here. Conversations are always one-to-one, but content is inherently more leveraged. So instead of doing all your selling via phone calls, for example, can you run masterclasses or webinars where you do some of the pitch in the masterclass so that the people who are reaching out to you already know what the offer is? And instead of spending time talking to all these people and maybe only converting, 1 in 3 of them, you can do a lot more of your pitching up front in your content so that by the time people reach out to you, the chance that they're going to close is maybe 2 in 3 or maybe 75%. So you end up doing a lot of your selling through your content, a lot more of your selling through your content. You front load the selling in your marketing. And as a result, you take less calls and you convert higher. And so all that time that you're freeing up in your sales process gets redirected back into doing things in your business that can create more leverage, things like creating content. Again, shifting the focus from conversations to content is super important. The second thing, and this is something I've been reflecting on a lot in our business lately, as we've made the shift away from selling group, like a core group offer, to now I only offer one-to-one, where I work with people on a very intimate, high-level basis, one-to-one. And I'm one of the few business coaches in the world at this level who is offering one-to-one. Most people are selling, group programs. And one of the biggest reasons I made that shift was, number one, because I think it's better for you. Honestly, people get better results when they work with me one-to-one. And I decided I wanted to work with a small number of people one-to-one and help them create incredible results, but also because it's a better offer. And when I look at how do I create more leverage in my sales process, one of the best ways to do it is to just improve your offer. If you can create a better offer, you can get to the place where maybe twice the amount of people say yes. You can create a lot more income into your business with the same amount of selling time. So a lot of people are having so much trouble selling because their offer really isn't that good, and they're wasting all this time on sales calls with people that aren't going to close. Instead of just shifting the offer piece, you make the offer a little bit better and your close rate goes way up. So, how is this on a practical level? How is this done? It might be including things like one-to-one. In our case, just shifting the delivery model, which I knew was going to be more attractive to people. Or it might be including some kind of like a guarantee or something like that to alleviate risk. Or it might be shifting the price point, or allowing different payment plans, or figuring out, how to address some of the biggest objections and concerns that people might have in the way that you actually present or deliver your offer. These are very simple shifts that you can make to the way that you're selling that will dramatically increase the amount of revenue you make and create so much more leverage around your selling time, because again, you're able to get a lot more output in terms of clients, in terms of revenue, with the same amount of input, right? So how can you improve your offer? Looking at your offer right now, most clients that I work with, this is a huge area of opportunity for the folks that I work with. And it certainly has been in my business too. It's such an easy shift to make, just looking at your offer and saying, what are the biggest objections that people have? What are the reasons that people have said no? I look back over all the sales calls, and I've done hundreds of them at this point, and I just reflect on I know there are 3 or 4 things that people have brought up for me again and again and again. One of the biggest things, and one of the biggest reasons I shifted to one-to-one, was because the biggest objection I would get is, I don't want to do a group program. Because people are burned out from group programs. It's like they don't want to join and be in a community where they got to spend 45 minutes sitting on a Zoom call with all these other people waiting to get their questions answered. They just want to be able to text me and have a near instant answer to their question. So I was like, great, we have daily on-demand Telegram text messaging support that we'll add in so that you can literally just pull out your phone and text me and get an answer to your question. How cool is that? So again, looking at the biggest objections that you might hear from your potential clients and asking yourself, how can I shape and reframe my offer to address these things so that more people say yes? creating more leverage around your sales. Also, changing the selling vehicle. This is a great way to create more leverage. So when I look at what I was doing initially compared to what I'm doing right now, I still do a lot of phone calls and I still sell a lot over the phone. And look, selling over the phone is the number one best way to convert at the highest. If you just want to make as many sales as possible, then getting on the phone is the best way to do it. If you sell via DM or you sell via sales page, you're going to make less sales. But you have to keep in mind that at a certain point in your business, there's an opportunity cost to every hour you spend on the phone with someone. And so maybe you start shifting some of your selling to DM, or you start doing some more of your selling through your content or up front or a sales page or something like that. Again, so you share your prices up front. These are very simple ways to essentially create more leverage in your sales process. And are you going to miss out on some revenue by doing this? Yes. That's the thing. If you look at it in a very short-term way, it's like, well, one of the biggest questions I get from people is like, should I put my prices on my website? Should I tell people the price up front? And my general recommendation for folks is it depends on your lead flow. If you have a lot of leads, then I think you can typically afford scaring some people off on the front end by sharing your price. And you probably are going to do that because if people hear your price up front out of context, they haven't heard your offer yet. You haven't taken them through a sales process. There's some people that are maybe going to be scared off by that if you were to just get on the phone with them and have a sales conversation, they might have said yes. That's true. But the advantage to this is that you don't end up spending all this time talking to people on the phone that aren't a good fit. And so if you look at the fact that, okay, well, now instead of converting 1 in 4 people, I can convert 1 in 2 people. Now I'm saving 3 or 4 hours a week selling that I can redirect into higher leverage things in my business, like marketing, like creating more content that's going to allow me to grow more in the long term in my business. So this is the mindset behind creating more leverage. It's taking that more holistic approach and realizing that sometimes you got to let go of short-term revenue in order to redirect that time and energy back into things that are going to create more leverage and more revenue in the long term in your business. So couple different ways you might be able to create more leverage in terms of your sales process. The last piece of this, super important as well, is delivery. When I look at what really creates the bottleneck for a lot of folks that I work with, coaches, consultants, people who are selling essentially their wisdom on some level, oftentimes what it comes down to is the way that they're delivering their offer just isn't leveraged enough, and they create a certain cap in their business, where it's just we can't get beyond a certain point unless we change the way that you're delivering your offer. So the obvious thing here for most folks is shifting from one-to-one to one-to-many. This is probably one of the biggest things that comes up as folks scale. When I was making 5 to 10K a month, I was doing one-to-one exclusively. Then I launched a big group coaching program. It was originally called Coaching Launchpad, then became Accelerator, took 140 people, I think, or pretty much 140 people through it. And that allowed me to scale, my business past multiple 6 figures a year. That allowed me to create a lot more leverage around my time. So I could essentially deliver that offer to dozens of people at once with 2-3 phone calls a week, for an hour. And versus what I was doing before was a lot of one-to-one. I was meeting with people one-on-one once a week. And that took a lot more of my time. So group programs, great way to create more leverage. And generally, as you scale and grow your business, that's one of the shifts that many people make. It's not like it has to happen. And I'll circle back to this in a second, because you might be wondering, well, Jason, you just went back to offering one-to-one. How are you creating leverage, in your one-to-one offer? And I'll answer that question in a minute here. The second way that you can create more leverage around your delivery is by augmenting with content. So when I look at what I was doing initially in my one-to-one offer, I had basically, I was just doing one-to-one calls with people every single week. And I realized after a period of time that I was saying a lot of the same things on those one-to-one calls. And I realized I could just create some pre-recorded videos that would walk people through like 50, 60% of what I was doing on these one-to-one calls. And so rather than needing maybe 12 calls over the course of 3 months, I could accomplish the same exact thing. People could get the same results, or in many cases, even better results with only 6 calls, plus a couple of training videos that would walk through some of the core foundations that they needed to know. So now effectively, I've doubled my leverage in that delivery by augmenting the way I deliver my offer with content. And this is what oftentimes is the move for a lot of folks I work with. It's like, rather than just jumping into a group program, and you can do a group program, there's nothing wrong with that. But oftentimes the first step for folks is, how do we just create more leverage around how you're delivering your one-to-one offer? So can you put yourself in a position where rather than needing 12 calls with someone, you can do it with 6, and you can augment with content. And oftentimes you create a better experience for people by doing that, because you make those training videos even more valuable and give them even more in those videos, but you only have to record them once. So augmenting with content is a great way to create more leverage around the way that you deliver your offer. And then finally, team is another way to do this. So for example, when I was running our group program, we had a head of client success, amazing coach, mentor. She went through my program, and then I ended up hiring her, and she was running one of our group calls every single week. And so now I'm in a position where I can deliver an even better experience for people, and she can be checking in with people, but I don't essentially need to be doing all that work myself. So I can create more leverage in my business by having someone on my team who can help with delivery. And oftentimes this is a key role in a lot of businesses, is like a client success role or something like that, especially as you grow and scale past 6 figures. Having someone on your team who can check in with clients, this is oftentimes one of a few key hires that I'll often recommend that folks make, particularly at a certain level in your business. So couple of different ways that you might create more leverage around the way that you deliver your offer. And these 3 key areas, marketing, sales, and delivery, really are, I would say, like the foundations of your business. And those are the 3 key areas that become bottlenecks when entrepreneurs don't know how to create leverage or just get stuck at a certain level. The key to getting beyond that level is always about creating more leverage. It's always a question of leverage. That is the key for business growth. And that's what's going to allow you to unlock that next level of growth without burning out, without working harder, without just giving more of yourself, which honestly doesn't work because you only have so much of you. We need to be able to take care of you as you grow your business too. So I mentioned earlier in the video that I wanted to share a very important question that you can ask yourself in order to put this into practice. So here is the key question. I want you to journal on this and reflect on this. What's the one area in my business where creating more leverage right now would generate the most revenue in return? I'll ask that question again. What's the one area in my business where creating more leverage right now would generate the most revenue in return? So you might look at every aspect of your business, your marketing, your sales, your delivery, your operations, your finances, your mindset. You might ask yourself, okay, out of all those things, what's the one thing that if I were to focus on that one thing and create more leverage there, it would create the most revenue? A couple of areas for a lot of folks, generally marketing is one of the biggest ones. Can we create more leverage around how you're showing up in your marketing? For a lot of folks, it's delivery, particularly folks who are growing and scaling their business. For a lot of folks, it's mindset. And particularly like skill is a big piece too. If you can become better as an entrepreneur, if you can invest in yourself, then everything you do becomes so much more impactful and effective. This is why I'm such a big believer in mentorship, why I've invested over $200,000 of my own money into hiring mentors and coaches and business mentors and people to help me, because investing in myself has been one of the biggest ways to create more leverage, because I impact every single thing that I do in my business, right? So if I can become better, if I can improve my mindset, if I can improve the way that I think about things, if I can develop my skills and expertise and knowledge and experience, then everything I do becomes more impactful and effective. So for many people, investing in themselves, that is the number one way to create more leverage in their business and actually grow their business. So what's that one area for you? If you're watching on YouTube, I'd love to hear in the comments down below. You can leave a comment. Let me know what's the one area that you're going to focus on creating more leverage in to grow your business. I hope you found this helpful today. So much good stuff here. Leverage really is the key to success when it comes to tripling your revenue heading into 2025. And I hope you apply this, because honestly, it's been one of the biggest keys to my success And I know it will change the game for you too. So lots more good stuff to come. Hope you enjoyed this episode today, and I will see you in the next episode.